believe in the ripple effect.
What's up? Another episode of Ripple Effect Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Ricardo Varandas, also known as Ricky Varandas, and a great new episode for you today. Today we have returning guest, attorney Brian Festa. And Brian and I met years ago when he was in Connecticut, and he had a organization called the CT Freedom Alliance, which he co-founded with veteran and activist Don Jolly. And CT Freedom Alliance was a organization that focused on medical freedom in Connecticut. Eventually, they started We the Patriots USA, which is a national organization. But similar to CT Freedom Alliance, their goal is to help people fight for medical freedom, among other things. And we get into all the things that We the Patriots USA focuses on. But Brian has been a dear friend. Way before COVID, he was already in this battle, in this fight with Don. And anytime I've had a friend or I've had a personal question, he's been more than happy to help. And I can't thank him enough for that. In the past, he's also had a couple of his clients on to tell their stories so you can get a firsthand account on what We the Patriots USA are doing in regards to helping people out. They have helped people with injuries. They have helped people who have lost their jobs due to medical freedom reasons. And they have helped a lot of people get justice, and they continue to do so. So I hope after listening to this episode, you go in the show description, you check out their work, you support them if you can. But before we get into our super informative and thought-provoking conversation, which, by the way, it does start off with some health and nutrition talk, because like many people who are in the medical freedom community, we're very conscious of our health and we like to be proactive. So I do think the initial conversation that we start off with is relevant to the podcast. But the conversation does transition and migrate to Brian Festa sharing his legal perspective on the state of the world and a lot that's going on. But before that perspective and conversation, let me remind you, this is a value for value show. If you get some value out of the discussions I bring to you and the guests I bring to you, please consider giving some value back. I take a lot of my own personal time to find guests, contact guests, book guests, record guests, upload and edit the shows, and I release all the episodes, video and audio, for free on all the major platforms. And all I ask is if you get some value out of the Ripple Effect podcast, please consider getting some value back. If you're not in a good financial situation, please consider just rating, reviewing, sharing the show on all the social media platforms you're on. That helps fight against the algorithms that censor shows and conversations like these. Also remember, my show is open source, so feel free to post it, share it, upload it anywhere you want, clip it. But for you regular listeners who enjoy the show and can financially contribute, please consider doing so. No amount is too little. If a small percentage of people who listen and watch to the Ripple Effect podcast contributed as little as much as you pay for a cup of coffee, $1 or $2 a month on Patreon, I could easily do the show full time. So please consider doing so. You can also send a one-time donation on Venmo or PayPal. We also have an awesome merch store, so please check out the merch store. It has tons of new logos, new designs. It's shipped quickly. The quality is phenomenal. And I promise you, you will find some logo, some design, some color, something you will like. Just go to the Ripple Effect Podcast, merch.com. It'll take you directly to that merch store. Big Frog Merch, who runs my merch store, it's a small family business. So you'll feel good knowing you're supporting a podcast you enjoy and also a small family business. And I guarantee when you get the merch, you'll be very happy with the print quality, the material quality, and just the quality overall. So get some thought-provoking t-shirts, hoodies, kids' clothes to help support a thought-provoking podcast you enjoy. Last but not least, we just had our 100th episode of the Union of the Unwanted. I'm so excited. It is amazing what that show's turned into. We did it with just the 4 co-founders. It was myself, Charlie Robinson from Macroaggressions, Sam Tripoli from the Tinfoil Hat Podcast, and then also Midnight Mike from the OBDM show. The audio is already available everywhere, and the video is available on Rumble. And weirdly enough, we're still live streaming on our YouTube channel. I don't know how long that's going to last, so please make sure you subscribe to the Rumble channel so you always get the new episodes, the new video episodes once they're uploaded. And also download the Rumble app. You can find it on Fire Sticks. You can find it on any phone or tablet. You can use it like you use the YouTube app. It's easy. It's convenient. You can watch your favorite shows and podcasts on your TV. So please subscribe to the Union of the Unwanted Rumble channel and the Ripple Effect Podcast Rumble channel. And I have a Ripple Effect Podcast archive channel with all my old stuff. So make sure to find all those channels on Rumble. Subscribe to all of them. Watch them. Listen to them on Rumble. It's convenient. You can actually minimize the video and just use it as a podcast player and listen to just the audio. All these links will be in the show description, or you can go to the rippleeffectpodcast.com to find all my socials, all the channels that you can find the video episodes, and much more. And you can also go to theunionoftheunwanted.com to find all our socials and all our links there also. Thanks, guys. Enjoy this amazing conversation with attorney Brian Festa, and I will talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.
All right, excellent. Let me just turn up the volume on my end. Long time no see. How you doing?
Good, good. Just, obviously recovering from the holidays a little bit, the craziness.
Yeah, back to the grind.
How was your holidays? Good?
Good. I mean, it was, relatively uneventful, which was good. The kids enjoyed it. They got almost everything they wanted, so.
Yeah, it's I remember growing up, we always felt the pressure of like, oh, we got to do something for New Year's. We have to, and now it's like we're completely cool with having low key, just go out to dinner as long as the kids are happy, and the kids don't require a lot to be happy. That's the other thing is sometimes we overthink things, and it's funny. I was at the gym once, and somebody was telling me a story about, and it really highlights kind of the point I'm making. He was talking about how he put together this just amazing vacation on this exotic island and had all these things planned or whatever. And he's like, the first day, the kids made some friends at the pool. And he's like, they didn't want to leave the pool. He's like, he couldn't get them to leave the pool. He's like, he had this reservations of a nice restaurant. He's like, he had all these sightseeing things or whatever. He's like, and the kids just wanted to hang out at the pool with their friends. And I'm like, yeah, you overplanned, my friend. I'm like, kids don't require a lot. We think like they need all these, fancy things and whatever. They don't. They're, that's kind of inherent in our DNA. Just as we get older, TV, corporations, propaganda, materialism just gets, kind of force fed to us. But we're really happy just being around our friends and family.
No, I know. My kids are always asking, the first thing they want to do when we get to a hotel is go to the pool, no matter where we are. It's like, why am I spending all this money, like you said, planning these extravagant, trips and sightseeing and, I mean, not that they didn't like Disneyland when we went there last year, but, because we were there, we try to make it fun because we have to go on these medical trips for my son. So we were at UCLA for a medical trip, and the first time we went to Universal, and then last year we went to Disneyland. Yes, I know Disney's evil, but for the kids, I bring them for a day. I canceled Disney Plus years ago, so it's not like we have that on the TV, but they can go to Disneyland for a day. It's not going to kill them.
Yeah, that is something that I think many of us who, I mean, for lack of, I guess a lack of a better term, who aren't normies, who, you
Red pilled, whatever you want to call it, if they still use that term.
yeah, you got to let your kids be kids. We understand that there's underlining messages and all this stuff, but like sometimes just can, maybe just let it.
Although I pointed out sometimes, I mean, not the really subtle stuff, but it's becoming more and more blatant these days. And my daughter recognized, she says, that's bad. She said they just said something bad, didn't they? That's not right. And like she'll recognize it and we'll talk about it. And so I use it as an opportunity to talk about it. So makes you feel a little less guilty.
Muted.
You're muted. There
Yeah,
you
I've only been doing this for like, since 2013, and I still mess up.
go.
But but yeah, well,
Been that long, huh?
yeah, since 2013. Yeah, 2013. And it's
12
funny.
years.
Yeah, and I still haven't figured out a way to make money doing this. Isn't that how business dumb I am? But it's all right.
If you can tell me, if you ever figure it out, please share it with me because we don't even have a podcast anymore. We haven't figured it out either. So,
Well, one thing that will so have you heard of Audio Boom as a podcast host? So I'm sure, are you a podcast consumer?
just not as much as a lot of people, but yes, I mean, I listen to some.
Okay, so I listen to a lot of podcasts. I got into this. Most things that I got into were because I was passionate about it, and then I just wanted to get involved. Similar with sports or music, whatever. I think I loved the thing first. Then I decide, hey, I want to play sports, or I want to play music, or I want to get into podcasting. So I've been a huge consumer of podcasts, and one thing you've seen throughout the last couple of years is you're starting to hear a lot more commercials in podcasts. But the reason that is because, like what we're discussing, it's really hard to get people to donate. It's really hard to get people um, to just, basically give money when they know they're going to get the product for free regardless. And I think it's a difficult thing. So what you're starting to see more and more of, and the podcast hosts I use, Podomatic, the host website that, I upload my audio to, and then, it shows up on iTunes and Spotify and all the podcast apps. They don't offer it yet, but they're in the process of offering it. They've been super good to me. Like, any, back in the day when I was getting censored, they always try to help me out with, like, if I was having issues with iTunes or whatever. So I'm trying to be loyal to them and trying to wait. But the Union Done Wanted is already on Audio Boom, and Charlie Robinson's on Audio Boom, and they're one of the host websites that already offer what it's called ad inserts, right? So what happens is that as a podcaster, like, reading off commercials kind of sucks. It takes up time, and you have to find products, or at least for me, I would have to find products that I like. So anytime I've done ads in the intro of the show, it's been for friends of mine or products I use or like. The only ones I've really done is Richard Grove's University of Reason, because he does. I've been friends with Richard forever. He's awesome. He's awesome with helping people get more out of life and whatnot. And then Element Electrolytes, because I'm a huge fan of Rob Wolf, and he's pushed back against big food and big pharma for a long time. And one of the first people to write about the paleo diet. He's been on Rogan a bunch. He opened up the first CrossFit gym in the U.S. He does jujitsu. He does a bunch of really unique stuff. And he also, his Element Electrolytes pushes back against the mainstream narrative in regards to sodium intake, because a lot of people are still convinced that sodium is really, really bad. He created a electrolyte product for athletes that has 1,000 milligrams of sodium. Like, he's like, this was by design, and it was because he was trying to formulate the best product for athletes and for people who are doing high intensity exercise, and also people who are fasting and doing keto type of diets. Because when you're doing a keto-esque diet or you're fasting on a regular basis, you're not eating, which means you're also not getting potassium, magnesium, sodium, and electrolytes. So staying hydrated can be very difficult. So what he did is he created a electrolyte that will help people stay hydrated throughout your day if you're fasting, and it has no sugar. It only has the stevia.
Can you send me a link or something? I'm actually doing not keto, but I like your term keto-esque, because I've done it before, and I don't make New Year's resolutions, but I guess you'd call this one. I said, this year I was going to get back to it. So, because I did a low carb thing before and lost a ton of weight. But I want it to be more, obviously, I don't like calling it a diet because I don't want it to be just January, February, March or something. I want it to be a lifestyle change.
Yeah, I'll
So
send
that's
you.
what I'm trying to do right now, and trying to focus more on exercise too. But definitely if there's something like that, because I do have trouble drinking enough water. I don't have trouble drinking these. This is good though. I have to stop though. I have a few left in my fridge. Have you ever seen this before? The yerba mate.
I've seen them. I don't know what's in it though. What's it like?
So
Is it,
it's organic,
yeah.
just to start. There's no artificial sweeteners or colors or anything like that. It's all organic. And it's made from, the organic brewed yerba mate, tea or extract. And then there's elderberry and some other. I have to stop drinking them though because I have to find a lower carb option because this is has real juice in it, real fruit juice, and so it does have carbs.
So let me.
But it's way better than drinking a typical energy drink.
Yeah, so let me give you some tips. So some of the products I use, and again, I'm not endorsed by any of these. Element's the only one that was a sponsor for a long time, and then honestly, just recently, I'm still sharing their links because I love the product, but their standards, this is the problem with Element is that I'm friends with Rob Wolf. First time, or one of the first times he was on the show. After the show, he knew I liked the product. He's like, "Hey, do you want us to be a sponsor?" He became a sponsor, but the company's gotten pretty large since then, and now he's basically hands off. It's kind of running itself. It has its own team and own whatever. Well, that team kind of raised the standards because the product's gotten so big that now they're only sponsoring shows that have like whatever, some ridiculous download numbers, right? And so now they're not a official sponsor of the show anymore. But I still talk about the product because it is a good product. To me, like I was talking about the product before they were a sponsor in the first place. But Element's a great alternative. They also came out with a Element like a sparkling water type of thing that no carbs, no sugar, stevia.
That's what I need because I used to use Highball, but they were bought by Anheuser-Busch, and it really got bad. And then they just stopped making it because I guess the sales weren't there. But they were. It was the same thing. That was it was completely organic, but it was like sparkling energy drink. It was just sparkling water, but like
And you
had
know who?
caffeine in it and stuff, but no, artificial, sweeteners or anything like that. And,
So do you ever?
I haven't been able to find a replacement. So you're saying Element has one?
Yes. So Element, it has no sugar, no carbs. Because the other thing is, I've been doing the keto diet for a long time. I actually had Dr. Dominic D'Agostino on my show before Rogan did. We were actually talking back and forth after he did my show, and because Rogan was kind of he was hinting that he was doing it, and he like started doing the diet after. And I'm like, hey, you got to go on because he was like the leading expert in the diet, and his story is pretty fascinating because he's the reason why I eventually had Dr. Thomas Seyfried on, who wrote Cancer as a Metabolic Disease. He's the one who, the reason why I eventually had Jim Abrams on, who was, and rest in peace because he actually passed away recently. But I had Jim Abrams on, who was the filmmaker who did Naked Gun and Airplane and all that stuff and started the Charlie Foundation. Um,
Hmm.
Named after his son who was having these violent seizures and couldn't went to all the top doctors in the world and only solved the problem by using the ketogenic diet, and then started a nonprofit to basically help people help research for dietary solutions to our health issues. And a lot of our issues are dietary, and Cancer as a Metabolic Disease is a great book that
It needs sugar to survive and thrive. And when you
absolutely.
starve it of sugar and carbs,
I have a friend of mine who had cancer in his late 20s, and I told him, I'm like, so I sent him like my podcast I did with Dr. Thomas Seyfried. I've sent him the book, sent him all this information, and I'm like, just think logically. Like your doctor will tell you that glucose is the energy source for cancer. So starving it of a energy source can only do good. There's no logical way where this could harm you. And he brings up to his doctor's like, I wouldn't worry too, because my buddy who had cancer, crazy sweet tooth. That's like his drug of choice. Like some of us is alcohol, some of us is smoking, some of us is coffee. His was like sweets, and his kids would eat sweets, and then he would eat them. He would, and I'm just like, dude, that's not good for you. I'm like, you have to cut out the sugar, and so he brings it to his doctor. His doctor's like, I wouldn't worry about that, but red meat, stay away from red meat. And I'm like, what? I'm like, what are you talking? So I actually
that's
asked.
all you should be eating. Red meat, well, meat in general, not just red, but yeah.
Yeah, I've done the carnivore diet too for 3 weeks, and I felt amazing. I did it right before Dr. Sean Baker was on because I wanted a firsthand experience with it, and it wasn't that different than what I was doing because the majority of my calories. So for years I've been fasting, eat once a day, and it's a carnivore, a ketovore diet. Basically, it's like the majority of what I eat, 90% of it's meat, and then I'll use some Primal Kitchen like Chipotle sauce or stuff like that. They do a lot of they make a lot of good products for like sauces and stuff like that that doesn't have like cheap artificial stuff and doesn't have soybean oil or any of the vegetable oil that's super bad for you. Because it was created by Mark Sisson. I used to have to order this stuff right from his website, and then eventually the company got so big that now you can get it anywhere. But Primal Kitchen's an interesting story because Mark Sisson understood there was a hole in the market. He's like, there's all these people are eating healthy, right? They're trying to eat salads and meats, but there's no sauces or dressings that are healthy to put on it. So you make a beautiful salad with avocado and egg and all this stuff, and then you throw some freaking soybean oil dressing on there, and you ruin your healthy meal. Same thing with like people who are eating steak. It's like, oh, you get this nice steak with some eggs on it, and then you get some A1 sauce full of sugar. So and the thing. I try to explain to people like your body's a hybrid car. It can run off sugar or fats. And that's all the ketogenic diet is. It's like you're teaching it to run off fats again. And I say again because historically, before we could get food whenever we wanted and snack all day, food wasn't guaranteed. So we would eat meat. We would eat the fatty meat. In Europe, we still eat a lot of fatty meat. We eat a lot of cheese, a lot of sausage, a lot of.
Well, I was going to say it's probably an easy transition for you being, Portuguese, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the carnivore diet, the hardest thing was eliminating the cheese because, once a week.
See, I'm Italian. I can't give up cheese, I'm Italian and French. So I can't give up cheese. I have so much trouble with that.
I the same, and my wife and I every week will do a meat and cheese night. So like Fridays when she gets out of work, the kids will be sleeping, and then we'll pop open a bottle of wine, and we get a bunch of we go to local butcher shops. They usually have a bunch of like cheese products from Portugal and stuff like that, and we'll try a bunch of stuff and get some sausage and some presunto.
Charcuterie, yeah, we do the same thing.
Yeah,
we do the same thing. I'm trying to cut out the wine though now too. That's another tough one, but because again, it's in my blood. You're Italian, French. I mean, this is the thing.
I drink wine every night. I always say I'm like I don't drink a lot. I drink often. I don't know how to eat without having a glass of wine. So even when I was doing the carnivore,
that's your culture. I didn't grow up that way. I kind of learned it as an adult. But yeah,
my dad makes 180 gallons every year. He's been doing it since I was a kid.
God bless him.
Yeah, and it's like and it just complements the food. It's hard. Even when I did the carnivore diet, I told my wife, I'm like, I feel like I'm cheating, but I'm like, if I'm gonna eat the same thing every night, I'm like, I have to have a little bit of wine. So I would pour myself a little bit of wine just to go with my steak or pork or whatever I was eating, and it helped me buy. But yeah, your body can run off. So like the thing is, if you tap into it, like when you go in ketosis, because your body's storing fat, it's smart. It's storing fat for when it needs it. Well, if you keep giving it glucose, it'll just keep storing fat. Once you stop giving it glucose, you ever been so hungry, but you don't have time to eat, and then all of a sudden that hunger goes away? That's your body naturally going in ketosis. It's saying like, hey, now I need to tap into that fat storage. And then your hunger goes away because we all have fat storage. So our bodies are like, okay, we're good. We're burning this fat. And then you're in ketosis. But there's also a lot of health benefits like inflammation. Like my arthritis in my joints were so bad in my 20s that after playing sports, I had to take ice baths and I had to take ibuprofen the next day to get through work because I work in construction. I'd be on my feet all day and I'd be in so much pain that in my 20s, once I cut out all the carbs and sugar, I'm now turning 40 in April. I have like almost just about zero joint pain, no matter how hard I train, no matter how much I play sports, no matter like almost zero. It was all due to my diet. And then like once a week or once every other week, we'll do a pizza night. It's like, I don't call it my cheat day. I call it my reward day for being so disciplined the whole week. And I'll do a pizza night, but I pay for it the next day. Like Monday morning, we usually do it Sunday night. Oh, Monday morning, like all my joints hurt. And I'm like, oh my God, this is how people feel all the time. And this is how I used to feel all the time. And so a lot of our health issues is dietary. There's a lot of, I mean, the thing that drives me crazy is that like people don't understand like what you're putting on your body, like everything from deodorant to sunscreen to whatever.
Yep.
Your skin's your biggest organ of your body, to everything you're putting in your body. It's either helping you or hurting you. And and everybody's so different that you could have, I mean, I talk to friends, they'll tell me like they're allergic to the most like harmless thing you've ever thought of. Like I'm like, how are you allergic to like yellow number 6 or 5 or whatever the hell it's called? It's like, how, And so it's like, sometimes it's really hard to figure that out. That's why I'm like, if it has less ingredients, the less ingredients it has, the better. If it has no ingredients, even better. Like eat things that you can pick, things you could grow, things you could kill. So another product that I use for in regards to like gut health, because gut health is really important. But the problem with kombucha, which is really popular, is they're all full of sugar. Well, there's one organic company called Remedy from Australia that I've been drinking for years, and it's phenomenal. What they do is they let the tea ferment all the way. So it's like a long process until all the sugar is gone. So it's the only organic kombucha, and it's like really reasonably priced. Only organic kombucha that has zero sugar, and then they sweeten it with stevia. So you can get the benefits of drinking kombucha without kicking you out of ketosis, without intaking any more sugar. Another company that's really good that I use, Jocko, the podcaster, the military guy. He's Jocko Wilkins.
I don't, but I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, he has a really famous podcast, and I know why, because every time I fall asleep with YouTube on, I wake up to a Jocko podcast. I'm like, why do they keep? I'm like, I barely listen to his podcast. I'm like, I don't know why they keep playing stuff. I'm like, but Jocko's products, he has a company he works for called Origin Labs, and Origin Labs, everything is American made. Everything is like really, really high premium stuff. So everything Jocko makes is good stuff. So he has an energy drink called Jocko Go. It has nootropics in it. And first of all organic, all natural. So in other words, like a lot of energy drinks will have synthetic vitamins, and you don't realize like synthetic also means your body processes it different and it doesn't process it as well. So it has actual vitamins like B vitamins. The caffeine comes from tea, only has like 85 grams of natural caffeine. So it's not a lot. Full of B vitamins, full of nootropics. So it's great for like if you're problem solving, if you're at work and you're trying to get work done, and you could drink a couple of them a day. No sugar, no carbs, sweetened with stevia, and it's phenomenal. Also, their hydration drinks. They have hydration drinks. They kind of look like a Gatorade. No sugar. My kids drink them. I got my kids off Gatorades, off the Primes, off that stuff, and just drink the Jocko because they taste just as good, if not better, and they're completely healthy. And what I do with my kids. So you ever use the Yuka app?
No.
So the Yuka app, I feel like I'm the guest on your show. So the Yuka app is phenomenal because I don't agree with its because it still has like a old school mentality in like, oh, you shouldn't be eating too much sodium or too much fat. But what it's really useful for is let me see if I can get it. Oh, you can't see it. But maybe I can pull it up. But it's YUKA. And what this app does, you can scan the barcode on anything, right? And it will tell you it'll give it a rating like excellent, good, whatever, and then like high risk, poor, whatever. And you can click on it, and it will tell you all the preservatives that are in things. So even things like there's a water. Is it called like essential or something like that? Starts with the E, like a water that's like has some electrolyte.
Element?
It's not element. Oh, maybe it is. Because there is a water called Element, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it starts with the E, but whatever. I scanned it, right? Just for the hell of it. I'm like, it's water, probably nothing in it. Tons of preservatives. Like, and I'm just like, what? So, like, and when I was trying to change my kid's diet, mostly my daughter, because my son, I always say kids don't do what you say, they do what you do. So my son eats pretty good because he's always around me and he sees the way I eat, so he's kind of adapted a similar diet. But my daughter loves a snack. Like everything she eats will be out of a package, and I try to give her good stuff like Quest protein cookies and bars or whatever. But it's like it's still packaged stuff that I'm like, you need to eat more fruit and meat.
It is, although their nachos are pretty good. They're Doritos.
Yeah, they
Quest protein chip Doritos. They're very salty, but they're good.
Yeah, I like Quest. I mean, I've been using Quest products since they came out. Like they've always been one of the better,
I mean, it's better than eating Doritos or something.
exactly, yeah. And so if you need to snack on something, I'd rather you snack on a Quest cookie than an actual cookie, because at least you're gonna get some whey protein. You're gonna get something, of value out of it. But yeah, so all these the app, I'll have the kids go around the house and just scan barcodes and be like, look what you're eating. And then you can click on the preservatives and it'll tell you why it's high risk, what so it's like it really gives a visual effect on the child.
That's great. Wait, it's YUKA or
Yeah.
CK? CA.
Yeah. So the only the yeah, let me see. App. I'll look it up and I can probably
And then we can talk about legal stuff, all right?
yeah, sorry, I didn't
No, it's okay. I am a little bit limited. I will have to go. So at a certain point, so I just want to make sure we can talk about stuff you wanted to talk to me about.
so this is it.
Oh, okay. YUKA with the little carrot. All
Yeah.
right.
And it's funny because I've been using it for a while, and on a recent Joe Rogan podcast they talked about it. One of his guests are like, oh, you can use this app.
I'm gonna download it right now.
Yeah, download it. It's awesome. Like I said, you could scan everything at the groceries. Oh, and the best part about the app, which is one of my favorite parts about the app, is that if something is not that good for you, it doesn't have a great rating, it will give you recommendations on healthier, suggestions to other things that are similar to it. So, like if you scan a Gatorade, it'll give you recommendations to other things that are hydration drinks that are better for you. And all of Jocko's stuff are, basically excellent. No preservatives, no nothing. I've scanned all the things that, yeah,
I
that's
got
it.
it.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a great product and it's great for kids. It's great if you're at the grocery store because as we know, labeling is very tricky. I remember when like keto started getting pop because we used to have to make everything keto. Like there's no keto products on the market. And then
Right.
all these keto products are popping up, and I would have friends text message me like, "Hey, Rick, is this healthy to eat? It's keto?" And I'm like, "Send me the ingredients and the nutritional facts," because I'm like, "Don't send me the front of it because that doesn't tell me anything." Like it's keto. Keto just means it's low carb, low sugar. They could be using sucralose, and it could have tons of like other shitty crap in it, like just stuff,
Right. Chemicals, yeah.
chemicals and flour, other types of flour.
Right.
So it's like it doesn't necessarily mean it's healthy. It just means it might not kick you out of ketosis. So food companies, they're smart. They know like, hey, if this is a becoming popular, let's put the word keto on it. Let's make keto products. Doesn't necessarily have to be healthy, but if it says keto, people will buy it, and they assume it's.
Oh no, my yerba mate got a poor rating.
Yeah, and but is it because of the sugar or the preservatives?
Probably a bit too sweet, a bit too caloric, but good with organic, no saturated fat, no sodium, no additive. It says one, no risk. Oh no, no risky additives.
Yeah, you can
So
click.
I mean, overall, it's good, but I agree with them that it's got too much sugar, which is why I'm not going to be drinking it anymore. Sorry, yerba mate, who's not listening. But anyway, all right. Well, hey, I'm ready to begin whenever you are.
I'm
I
gonna
mean,
keep.
I assume,
I'm gonna keep
I
going.
mean, you can air whatever you want, but this isn't really the conversation we were going to have, right?
Yeah, sorry, we got a little carried away. But one thing I do like about these conversations is that people do have to be, more wary of what they eat and all.
Absolutely.
So, but let's
Well, I
get.
saw it on the back while we were talking on your screen, diet and nutrition. That's one of your categories, one of your topics on your show. So
Yeah.
it's important to you. I know health is important to you, and you've always been, been very interested in health and wellness and sports and exercise, things like that, fitness.
Well, that can change your like. That's the thing. Like that's why even the vaccine conversation became so important to me at such a young age because I'm like, we could talk about foreign policy, we can talk about a lot of different things, but it doesn't affect your life right now. I can only
Personally,
I can only protest the war if I'm healthy enough and I have the energy to get out of bed and make a sign and gather people. Like the more energy I have and the better mood I'm in and the healthier I am, the more I can, like if I help myself now, I have the energy to help others, right? So that's why these topics are so important. But enough about me. Hopefully people got a little
I
bit.
run I run on adrenaline, so even when I feel like absolute crap, like I've pushed through. I mean, so much of what I've done not feeling great. I can only imagine what I could do if I actually felt great all the time, or most. I mean, you're not going to feel great all the time, but most of the time. All right. I could do so much more because I've done a lot, and people don't even realize how horrible I feel, or I have zero energy. And they think I'm high energy because I just talk that way. I'm like, I could be completely tired, but I'm like going a mile a minute and stuff. That's just adrenaline. That's not real energy, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, now if you ever need, you got my number. If you ever have any questions, throw me a text message. I probably have done a podcast on it. I'll send you the one I did with Dr. Dominic D'Agostino. He's a great guy too, and it's funny because we couldn't talk about it on the air, but before the last show, he kind of shared a little bit of his perspective and story about the mandated COVID vaccines and whatnot because he works at a university and he's let's just without giving too much away, like he's definitely on our wavelength. He's and which is why I connected with him the first time he was on the show, and we've been friends since. But and same thing with Rob Wolf. He's very outspoken, which a lot of people who have big corporations and make money, selling products, definitely sometimes will pump the brakes a little bit, but he's not afraid to be outspoken about what was going on in the world. So I give them both a lot of credit, and that's why I support their work and whatnot. But so what have
That's great.
besides the holidays, what have you been up to, and how's We the Patriots USA doing? What big projects you've been invested in, and anything else that you have to share?
Great, thanks. Well, before we get into We the Patriots, my partner in crime, Dawn, says hello. I told her I was coming on your show, so she just said hello and Happy New Year as well. And it's exciting. This is supposed to be a big year, right? Everybody's anticipating January 20th, which is now what, 12 days away or something. And they're expecting some huge monumental change the day that Trump, is sworn in. But I don't know about that. And I want to get I'd like to, I know you said earlier, you joked that it seems like you're a guest on my show too, but like after I'm done with my spiel, I'd like to get your thoughts on it. But, my thoughts on it is that people cannot afford to be complacent. Absolutely. I mean, I think the biggest enemy that we're facing in the new year is complacency. And I actually wrote a Substack about this called The Complacency Problem. So if you go to Free the Law, that's my Substack. I don't know if you subscribe. If you don't, please do. If anyone's listening, please do. You go to we the Patriots USA Substack, I think is what it is, .com.
I'll put
And you cut.
I'll put the links.
Yeah, you'll come. I can give you the direct link, but yeah, you'll see it's called Free the Law. And basically, I wrote it a few weeks ago, so you'll have to scroll. You'll find it. It won't be too far down, but it's called, I don't write Substacks like every day, like some people do. I might not even write one every week. I might go like 2 weeks without writing one because I only believe in writing or even speaking really when I have something really important to say. Some people just write to fill space or
I
speak to fill air.
love that. I love that because so many podcasters. Sometimes I'll go a little bit without doing a podcast, and I'm like, these podcasters are doing way too many podcasts. I feel like you should only, like you said, you should only write or speak when you're a little inspired, right?
Right. And so I'll get ideas at the weirdest times. Like I'll be in bed or something. It'll be, it could be 11 o'clock, 11:30 at night, and I have an idea and I have to at least write something down so I remember it. It usually does seem to be the most inopportune times when I have those ideas. Like I really don't have time to write right now, but I really want to write. I just came up with this really great, what I think anyway, is a great thought and insight into something that's happening right now, and I want to share it with people. And obviously, not everyone is going to love it or agree with it, but the point is, it gets people talking, and it's usually thought provoking. If I don't, I've tried. There have been a few rare times where it feels like I just haven't written in a long time, and I just have to write about something, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. If you're trying to force it, it just doesn't work. So anyway, my Substack, hopefully people like it because it usually is those things that where I have like a light bulb moment, have a spark, and I have something to share. So anyway, the complacency problem was talking about how so many people, especially in health freedom, you know that I got my start in health freedom, doing this kind of work, litigation, public interest, the public interest law firm, which is what We the Patriots USA is, if anyone listening doesn't know. We are a public interest law firm. We provide pro bono representation to people who have experienced violations of their constitutional or civil rights. And we take on a wide variety of cases. So everything from health freedom, religious freedom, parental rights, educational rights, Second Amendment rights. We have medical kidnapping cases now we're involved in. I mean, free speech. I mean, we do a wide variety of litigation, but we started out, Don and I, who are business partners and friends, started out doing health freedom work. And, you came down before to rally with us in Connecticut when we were in Connecticut. We're in Idaho now, but we rallied at the state capitol. We rallied against the religious exemption. We're still fighting to win back the religious exemption in Connecticut with various litigation, which I can talk about. But the health freedom community in general, what scared me is after Trump was elected and he announced that Bobby Kennedy Jr., who is a personal friend of mine, and I do have direct contact with him, and I text him sometimes. But here's the thing. People felt like he's our savior, right? Because he's been the champion, the leader in the health freedom movement, one of the leaders, not the only leader, but he's been one of the most prominent voices at the forefront of our movement. And he's done some incredible work, and he deserves to be recognized as a leader. I'm not taking anything away from him. And I have great respect for the work that he's done in health freedom. But to think that just because he's been appointed Secretary of HHS, which hopefully, we'll see if he'll be confirmed, but this is Brian Festa speaking. We're nonpartisan at We the Patriots USA. I just have to put that disclaimer. We don't endorse or oppose any candidates for office or anything like that. But, even if he gets in there and he's confirmed, as many in health freedom hope that he will be and expect that he will be, it's not going to change overnight, number one. And number two, when have we ever been able to rely on the federal government to save us? I mean, think about it. If you're relying on the federal government, I don't care whether it's Trump and Bobby Kennedy, or obviously, Biden and Harris and, Fauci and everyone else, whoever it is in power, the bureaucracy of the federal government is not there to protect your rights. Okay. The framers of the Constitution recognized that government was evil, that larger government was evil, that the federal government should have limited powers, and most of the powers should be reserved to the people and to the states. That's why we have the 9th and 10th Amendments. So there's going to be battles at the state level, and guess what? Trump's not going to be able to win all of them. If you're living in a state, in any state, I don't care if it's red, blue, purple, whatever. If you're living in a state right now, especially though with a governor or with a legislature that doesn't necessarily agree with the policies, to put it mildly, of President Trump, that's going to be a battleground state, and you're going to be getting a lot of tyranny in your local state. And Bobby Kennedy isn't going to march into the courtroom to save you, and neither is the new Attorney General, whoever that ends up being, Pam Bondi probably, and neither is President Trump. No one's marching into a courtroom to save you in your local community. You're going to need to rely on your own assertion of your rights, but also on lawyers and organizations like We the Patriots USA to stand up and defend you in those private battles within your states and your local communities. And so people need to realize that. I think they're just assuming that everything's going to be fine. Take the vaccine issue, for instance. You say, well, Brian, what are you talking about? Bobby's going to revamp that. The CDC, they're going to completely change their childhood vaccination schedule, all the ACIP, the committee, he's going to completely disband that and whatever. Number one, he hasn't said any of that. But even if he does do all of that, and there's no more recommended childhood vaccinations, let's just say that was the CDC's recommendation now, that nobody should be getting a COVID shot or any of the other childhood shots. Let's say that changed overnight. What do you think is going to happen in states like Connecticut and Massachusetts and California and New York? Suddenly, even after decades, they've been telling us that the CDC and the FDA, those are the public health authorities, we have to listen to everything they say in lockstep. Suddenly, they're going to say something different. Suddenly, they're going to pass laws saying that the commissioner of health in the state is the authority, that the New York State Health commissioner is the authority and not the CDC. That the Massachusetts or Connecticut public health commissioner is the authority, and their recommendations shall be binding upon everybody living there. So they're not going to look to the federal government anymore. Suddenly they're going to say the CDC is full of people we can't trust, pushing disinformation, and therefore we must trust our own local state health authorities. And guess what? They have the right to do that because there is nothing in the Constitution that forces the state to comply with the CDC or the FDA. And we love that, right? Up until now, we would have loved that. We would have said, yes, we don't want, yes, the state should have the right to reject the CDC and the FDA. But suddenly, when the CDC and the FDA is preaching truth, the truth about vaccines, for instance, and other harmful drugs and things, suddenly it's going to be like, we can't trust them. We're going to trust our own state health authorities. And you know how that's going to go. So there's going to be a battle. Now we're going to have to file legal battles to defend you when they issue mandates for school, even though the CDC is saying something different. We're going to have to go into court and sue them. There's no constitutional problem in what they're doing, but there still could be a legal problem with regard to mandates, religious freedom, religious objections, medical exemptions. We're still going to have to fight for those people. The battle, this is just maybe a battle that was won, perhaps, but the war is anything but won.
So I am concerned about that because, like you said, every state is slightly different, and the way the founding fathers created this country and created the system that we live in was because they understood that you shouldn't give federal government, overall power of everything because that can turn out very poorly. And states should have the right to dictate and govern the way they would like, based on the people who live there. So that way, you also have the option to go to a state that has a worldview that's similar or more similar to your worldview. So I do like that. But how? So right now, it's every state has requirements for vaccines, for some amount of vaccines to go to school, right? To go to a public school.
Yep.
Is that mandated by states individually, or is that federally? Like, there's not one.
That's states. There's no federal law that you need vaccinations to attend school. There's recommendations. The childhood schedule, vaccination schedule, immunization schedule, they call it, from the CDC is a recommendation. It is not a mandate. Each state adopts based on they base it usually on the CDC schedule. But now it's going to change because if the CDC schedule changes, if Bobby is successful and he, is able to expose the truth about vaccines and completely revamps the CDC, then their recommendations presumably will change, right? But I don't see the states changing their recommendations. So now you're going to set up a showdown between the state and federal governments. Yeah, even with COVID, like that's what everybody was scared about was that it was being added to the childhood schedule because it was obviously to give it liability protection under the 1986 Act, right? That's the real reason they did it, not because children should be getting it. But then in states like Connecticut, when people were freaking out, the Democrats, the state legislature, the people in power in Connecticut were saying, don't worry. It hasn't, that's just, the federal level, we would have to, we have not mandated that in Connecticut yet. We have not made that decision yet. Okay. Doesn't mean they won't. But initially, anyway, they didn't. Even though it's on the schedule there, it's not mandated in really any state. I think California was looking at it. I don't know if they actually did mandate it for, I think they were looking at it, but every other state, from what I understand, has not mandated it for schools attendance, the COVID shot. Secondary school, elementary school, I'm not talking about college. Colleges, they do what they want. Some colleges still require it. Most have done away with the COVID mandates for college attendance, but some still do require it. That's kind of a mixed bag. But yeah, it's up to the states, and that's just another example of it doesn't matter that Trump's in power or that Bobby Kennedy will have all this power. If the states refuse, and think about how many states that went for Trump, but have governors and legislatures that absolutely hate him, okay, and hate his policies, I should say, at the very least. You're talking about, states like Michigan. We have Gretchen Whitmer there. You think she's really going to go along with Trump's policies just because her state went for Trump? No. Okay. You have, Minnesota, Tim Walz. I could go on. And then, of course, you have the states that went for Harris, of course, that we know are obviously going to oppose him, like Gavin Newsom in California and Kathy Hochul in New York and Ned Lamont in Connecticut and Maura Healey. I mean, the list goes on and on of all. You can go down all the governors and that you can think of, either in swing states or in blue states, that are absolutely going to be opposing him.
Now, have you? I talked about this actually on my last episode with Dr. Jessica Rose. I sent it to her before the podcast because I was curious about her thoughts. But did you see the Cali Means Dr. Jack Cruz debate on? Dr. Jack Cruz was on my show recently, and he was bashing the crap out of Cali Means and his sister, and so I was happy to see the debate happen. But what was your thoughts on that?
Well, I confess that I did not actually watch the debate. I thought you were asking me about something different. However, I know of it and I've, read about it and everything else. But I saw when Callie and Casey were on Tucker, because I thought that's what you were going to start asking me about. So I'm familiar with them, obviously. And I know that there was a debate, and I have to still, it's on my list. I've got to go watch it because I'm so backlogged from the holidays of things I was supposed to watch and listen to. Now that you're jogging my memory, maybe I'll listen to it today. But my thoughts initially are that, I mean, there's been a lot of talk in the medical freedom community that we shouldn't be trusting everything they're saying because they're not on our side. They controlled op, whatever you want to call it, that they came out of nowhere and suddenly they're featured everywhere. And all these other people who have been fighting in health freedom for years and years and years aren't getting a voice. Is that kind of what you're asking me about?
Well, I think that's what Dr. Jack Cruz's concerns were when he was on my show. It wasn't, I mean, I'm not taking credit for him saying this because he was saying it even before he was on my show. Anytime he did an interview, he would bring up his concern about them and exactly what you just stated. Those were the concerns he was worried about, that there's tons of people who aren't getting attention and yet all of a sudden their Twitter followers blew up. All of a sudden they're hanging out with Kennedy and they're, on all these big podcasts. Callie Means says that when he did the Tucker Carlson interview and that show went viral, that kind of what started all of it and sparked the interest in what they were saying. I'm curious if because I think Kennedy and Del Bigtree and these people who are well spoken, well dressed, maybe they help build a bridge between the normies, and because they look a little bit more professional, they sound a little bit more professional, they have a little bit more of a professional background. Maybe that helps with kind of building a bridge, and maybe that's why they got so popular, because I think one was a doctor, Callie's sister. I keep forgetting her name, and then Callie he was in politics. He was a lobbyist and he did a bunch of other stuff. So he's very well spoken. And I mean, do you think that's maybe what sparked, or are you also concerned about their popularity increasing at such a rate?
Well, I just wonder. I mean, I'm sure it is true that once he went on Tucker, he went viral. And that's why everyone wants to get on Tucker. But then the question arises, how did he get on Tucker in the first place? You obviously have to know people in high places to get those kind of interviews. Not that Tucker's never had an ordinary person on, because from what I understand, he has.
Yeah,
I don't watch all of his shows. I see ones that people share, and then the Callie and Casey Means ones was ones that I was interested in. So I told you earlier when we first started talking before we jumped into the main interview that I'm sort of just a moderate consumer of podcasts. I don't watch every episode of the Ripple Effect. I'm sorry, or even Glenn Beck or Joe Rogan or anything else. I don't like consume it like crazy. When someone shares an episode and say it was a really good interview, I'll listen to it. And sometimes I listen to part of it, sometimes I listen to the whole thing if it's really good. Callie and Casey Means, I think I listened to all of that when they were on Tucker. I found it very interesting. I love when new people come into the movement. I'm not one of these people that says, oh, because at one point I wasn't part of the OG, okay? At one point, Bobby Kennedy wasn't part of the OG. He wasn't. He came in later. Sherry Tenpenny and there's other people, maybe like Barbara Loe Fisher comes to mind, who was in this way before anyone from the early 80s, okay, that even predates Dawn, my business partner, who's been in it for 22 years now. All right, she's the OG. She's actually been in it longer than Bobby Kennedy, but she's not a big name, and I'm not a big name, and that's fine. And I love when I see new people come into this movement, though. because that means that the movement's growing. If there's no new people, if it's only the same voices, then we're in an echo chamber and we're not growing. That's not a good thing. However, there is obviously it is detrimental when only certain organizations and only certain people are featured. So I will be honest, it does hurt we the Patriots, the fact that Don or I don't get those invites on a show like Tucker or Rogan. It hurts us tremendously because we could generate an incredible amount of revenue and new followers, which would go towards helping people. We have a line out the door, down the street, around the corner of plaintiffs who want to file lawsuits and need help, and we have to turn them away because we don't have the money. Suddenly, if I got on Tucker, I'd have it overnight. So yes, that part does sting. I'm going to be honest about that. That part hurts because if we were able to get on there, and we have been fighting in this fight longer than people like Casey and Callie Means, okay? We've been involved in health freedom activism at the very least for much longer. Like I said, but in Don's case, even longer than people like Dell and Bobby. I mean, Don's been doing it since the early 2000s. Okay, that's before Dell even worked on the doctors. Okay, we're going way back. She was doing it. Okay, from her time, immediately when she was in the military and right when she got out and post 9/11, those early years after 9/11 is when she really got involved in it. So you look at that and say, well, why isn't she getting recognition? Yes, she was one of only 5 people in the country that was invited to meet with President Trump in August, by the way, to discuss medical freedom issues and vaccine mandates. That was right before he made his decision to bring Bobby Kennedy in, and they had that big announcement when he brought him up on stage and everything. Exactly 1 week to the day before that, he was meeting with Don Jolly and 4 other people to discuss vaccine mandates at his club in Bedminster, New Jersey, his private golf club. They had a meeting. So she is recognized privately and behind the scenes, but has she gotten those big interviews? No. If you know anyone that can connect her or connect with me, then that's great. But I figure if that were the case, you would be on Rogan or something or Tucker. You know what I mean? If you had all of those connections. But that would be the watershed moment for us. And not because we want fame. Honestly, we don't. We don't want our names in lights or headlines or anything. We really just want the organization to be able to grow so that, because we're censored horribly. Dawn can't even get on X anymore. Not only can she not get on Facebook, we were banned for life, both of us, both individually and professionally with our business, banned from PayPal and Venmo for life. That was years ago. That happened. We can't even use it personally, even though I never did anything with my business on my personal account. They said, too bad. Nope, you're never using it again. She can't even log on to X. She's created I don't know, 5, 6, 7 new accounts with different devices, different wireless and everything. They still somehow flag her and recognize her. She uses different names, everything. They won't let her create an account. She can't get on X. They won't let us advertise on X, no matter how much money. Even if I want to pay $5,000 to run an ad campaign, they won't give it to me. They refuse to accept our credit card. X has been censoring us and shadow banning us for years. I wrote another article on my Substack recently. It's actually probably the most recent one, I think. I might write one today. So by the time this gets out there, it may not be the most recent, but it's called "There's No Freedom of Speech Without Freedom of Reach," because that's X's policy, freedom of speech, but not freedom of reach. But I maintain that you cannot have freedom of speech without freedom of reach. If you only have 10 followers or 100 followers or even 1,000 followers, that's not going to do anything. I mean, imagine if the federal government, I say this in the article, imagine if the federal government said you're allowed to speak and say whatever you want, but you can only do it in deserted places where there's nobody around. Would that really be freedom of speech? No, that'd be a blatant First Amendment violation. We'd file a lawsuit and would win that. That'd be I never say a lawsuit slam dunk, but that'd be an easy slam dunk to say that you can only do it in places where nobody will hear you. And that's essentially what Elon has done, what X has done. It's what Facebook has been doing, Meta has been doing for years. We have 29,000 followers on Facebook that were built before all this happened, but nobody sees our post because Facebook admitted to us. They actually sent us a message saying, we're going to stop showing your posts in people's feeds, and we're going to stop recommending that people like or follow your page. They actually admitted they were going to do that to us. I have that in black and white in writing, that they said, we're shadow banning you. Like they absolutely just told us straight out. It's not just something we're like assuming or some conspiracy theory. We actually got a communication from Facebook saying that. So that's what frustrates me because the only way we're going to overcome that would be to get on a big show like that, to get on Tucker, Rogan, something like that. If we were on that podcast, if we were on a podcast like that, then we'd overcome all the censorship because then everybody would see it because those people aren't censored. And then again, that makes you scratch your head. Well, then why isn't Tucker censored? He says a lot of controversial things. Rogan says a lot of controversial things. Why is he allowed to have a platform? And the reason that's given to me usually doesn't mean that they're controlled off or anything. I'm not saying that. The reason is everybody would be outraged. Everybody would notice it. Nobody's going to notice when We the Patriots is censored. But someone with like 14 million followers, they're going to kind of notice that they're not seeing their post anymore. You're not going to, or if they outright ban their account, that would be headline news. It would be horrible PR. But it's not PR for them to ban me and you, Ricky.
Well,
it's not bad PR.
And I think those people aren't, they don't exclusively talk about the most controversial issues. You know what I mean? It's not like they're one, topic or focus. So it's, I think that's one of the reasons because they have people on, like the people who are doing the censoring. Sometimes, these people who aren't censored are going to say things that they like, and maybe not always. But the thing with us, it's like, the medical freedom world, like there's nothing that's been more censored throughout history than that. I would do early shows when I first started my podcast in 2013. I would have Jason Burmis on, talk about loose change in 9/11. I talked about, I had tons of different people on. But the shows that would get censored, even when I was just a little toad in a big pond, I was just kind of, trying to gain momentum. Was like I would have Dr. Brzezinski on from the cancer documentary, the guy who was curing people of cancer with anti-neoplastones and was like censored and the government tried to shut him down and all this stuff, like crazy story. I would post that show on my social media accounts and boom, like people would, a bunch of bots would say, he's pseudoscience, he's this, he's that, he killed people, and then I would have, just anybody that was anti-vax or whatever. Like those were the shows where I would see where the shadow banning would be more obvious, or sometimes it wouldn't even be obvious at all. Like Facebook would just flag me, say that I can't post it or whatever. And it's like, I could talk about the JFK assassination. I could talk about the moon landing. I could talk about 9/11. I could talk about the Iraq war. I could talk about the anthrax scare. I could talk about any controversial topic you could think of. Basically, no real obvious censorship until I talked about medical freedom issues. And that's why at a really early stage, I'm like, this is the most important topic. And it's the most important topic because, it's affecting us every day. People are completely brainwashed in regards to these topics. They just like at a young age, they're just like told that vaccines have saved us from polio and all these things. And everybody, like people aren't even questioning it. And really they have just enormous influence on policy, on the media. It's the one topic that you wouldn't see the news talk about, or you wouldn't see brought up during debates. Trump was the first one ever, to bring it up during a debate, the vaccine schedule. And so to me, it was like, it was obvious. I'm like, oh, if they're censoring it, that means like, there's a reason for it. There's a reason why they really don't want people to wake up to this issue. And then when COVID happened, it's like, well, how does everybody get how do you talk everybody into getting a experimental gene therapy vaccine that they don't really need because the virus that it's trying to save you from isn't that dangerous if you haven't convinced everybody that vaccines is a savior to all our illnesses and whatnot. So, and obviously you look at a depopulation thing. I mean, think about the type of person that, was getting the vaccine. It was like old people who were afraid of dying. Like those were the people that really needed it. That's what the media would tell you. Those are people who really needed it. They had, maybe not, we evolved to maybe not the young person, but the old person who really needs it. Well, if you're that old and you made it that far, whatever you're doing, you're probably okay. Maybe you don't need it. Maybe you don't need to take an experimental anything if you're 80. Maybe you've whatever you've done all right. Like keep doing what you're doing. Have your glass of wine. You're every night if that's what you've been doing for 80 years, it's working. So, but I wonder. And obviously the depopulation issue is a real issue, and it's something that the elite really do believe in, and I think there could be even a link to like why they took down the Georgia Guidestones and that mysterious explosion, because it literally said on the Georgia Guidestones in all the major languages that the population should be at a certain number and whatnot. And then
500,000,
yeah, and then
yeah.
so we're doing it. We're literally cutting. And guess what? Those people, if you're the government, why wouldn't you look at the old population as leeches to the government? Because they contribute nothing, and they're getting all these free services, right? Medicare. I think one of the biggest expenses for the government is health insurance for the older population, for senior citizens and whatnot. So you get rid of Social Security costs, you get rid of Medicare and all these costs. So it's like kind of makes sense. And then let's just send all that extra money to Ukraine or wherever else we want to send it, or use it for surveillance against their own people. So, yeah, but a tip. James Corbett, he was also one of my first guests, I think, if not the first like major guest I had on my show. Really grew and got to the point where he was on Dr. Drew, and he ended up being, which was mind-boggling because I remember having him on, and like he was very like alternative, just like my show was. And to see him on Dr. Drew, to see him on the High Wire, to see him on interviewing Kennedy on his show was like, I'm like, wow, we've made it. Like we've made some serious leaps. And but one thing that Corbett would always do is that when I first started my show, this was like months into starting my show, he came on my show and he would go on everybody's show. And Corbett was one of those people that if you're a new podcaster, maybe not so much now, but at the time when he was kind of, also growing, anybody who would invite him on, he's like, I'll make time. Even if it's just 30 minutes, I'll come on your show. And he was
I'm the same way though. I've been doing that for years. I don't ever turn down a podcast interview.
really, oh,
I
good.
don't think I ever have.
That's awesome. Yeah, because even this,
I don't think I ever have. Even if they have like 5 followers, I'll go on there.
yeah, because
In fact, I did an X space yesterday with someone. There were only like 5 people listening, but and that's the second time I've done them with him. He's a friend of ours and he supports our organization. But anyone, but even if they're complete strangers, because most of them are that invite me on, and they have no followers, I'll go on. Now, of course, I still keep trying to get on the big shows too, but I'll always do the smaller shows, the medium shows. I mean, I don't consider yours really small. I mean, compared to someone like Rogan, it is, but it's medium in that you didn't just start. You don't only have like 5 people listening. I think you have like, I don't know. You told me last time I asked you a couple of years ago. You told me you had like 35 or 40,000 downloads. I don't know if it's still up there or more or less.
yeah, it does pretty well. I mean, so in my category of society and culture or philosophy, if when I'm putting shows out on a regular basis, so at least once a week, easily, top 50 show, sometimes top 20 show, in that category. In weird countries, I've been number one quite a few times, like Estonia, and like, just
Maybe that's the way to make money from doing this, Ricky. Move to one of those countries.
and I'm glad you brought that up because that is something that like typical Ricky manner, I got way off topic. But one thing I did want to bring up is that if you and Don, and this is a great way of, because I was bringing up like you're starting to listen to podcasts and you're starting to hear ads. The Union of the Unwanted, you're starting to hear ads in the beginning of the show and at the end of the show. Why is that? Because people don't donate, right? So Charlie and I have kind of taken the seat because obviously we're all super busy, and we're like, okay, we don't want to do ads, but Audio Boom is one of the hosts that Charlie uses for his own show, and a bunch of other podcasters that we know use them, really like them, and what they do, they offer the ad inserts as a service, a free service from them. So we don't have to do any additional work, right? We basically just agree, and you can pick what type of ads you're okay with or not okay with, and you can pick if you want them in the beginning, at the end, in the middle, or all three. And what happens is every time they play an ad before your show or at the end of the show, you make a couple bucks, and you don't have to do any additional work. So you get a show like The Unit Unwanted that does really well. we put it out there, and it can make a little bit of revenue. And we don't have to do any additional work in regards to like I don't have to find products I like. I don't have to make sure it's a product that represents my views. I don't have to record it. I don't have to do any of that. All I do is upload it, and all I do is agree to add that ad. And all the podcasters are doing it because even though we all hate ads, the Rumble, for example, has a bunch of them when you start a video. Unfortunately, it's a great way of being able to just put your content out there, not having to read anything or have to sponsor any products directly, and a way of making a couple bucks. My Rumble channel is growing a little bit, but Rumble is great because unlike YouTube, you can actually put controversial shows up there and really thought-provoking, open-minded conversations and not be censored and flagged. But they give you the same option for revenue like YouTube does. So, and I know people hate ads, but like I said, it's when people aren't donating. And personally, if I can just like hit play and I have to listen to Charlie Robinson's ad in the beginning of the show, but I get to help Charlie without having to like take money out of my pocket and put it into his pocket, I can just help him just by listening to the show, which I'm going to do anyways. Why not, right? So it sucks that it's kind of led to that. For years, I've never done any sponsorships, any ads, no nothing. But once, I'll be honest, and my listeners are probably hearing it for the first time on the show, but once Podomatic offers that, and again, I want to be loyal to the company because they've been good to me. Hopefully, it's not much longer. But once they offer that same service, I'm going to activate it, and I'm going to use it because that way it's going to help me keep the lights on. I mean, as we get older, we have family, friends, traveling. Obviously the economy sucks. Thank you, Joe Biden, and everything's super expensive. So, like, you know what? If I can make a couple bucks every month just by adding some ads in the beginning of the show, and I don't the listener doesn't have to take any money out of their account to put in mine. You can take it from the marketers and the big brands who have plenty of money to share. Then, and you know what, Charlie and I have talked about this. It's kind of funny because like, what if we have a corporation who we don't even like, and maybe we bash on the show, putting an ad before our show, and they're sponsoring a show that is talking bad about them. So, that's kind of funny too. But you and Don, why not do a weekly show? You and Don are great talkers. You're very insightful. Even if it's just like 30 minutes, use a service like Audio Boom, put a podcast out there, 30 minutes of your time. As it grows, you get some ad revenue. Every time you do a podcast, you can market your own podcast. I mean, Charlie and Sam and Corbett have done amazing work of just like consistently staying consistent with like doing interviews. Obviously, every time you do an interview, you're also have a opportunity to talk about your own personal show, and then kind of growing that show by doing that. Just kind of cross breeding with other communities and other podcasts listeners. And it'd be a great way of making a little extra cash, and as the show grows, so does the revenue grow. So that might be something you want to look into. And also Rumble, because they don't censor, maybe put it up as a video episode, and you could put it on Rumble, and Rumble also gives you the opportunity to monetize. And the nice thing about monetizing on Rumble or Audio Boom or both is that neither of them censor. So you don't have to worry about putting in all this work and then losing that revenue.
Right. We have talked about it, and it is kind of something that's in the plans as far as bringing another podcast, on board. Unfortunately, the podcast we had, as you know, we had Taryn for a while doing Faithful Freedom. We had Kristen, Megan, Kelly doing Vets and Visionaries, which she still occasionally would do a special episode here and there. Those never really took off, never really made money. We did get sponsorships. We actually had paid sponsors. We have to limit, because we are a nonprofit, and this is all, I know we're talking publicly about this. This is fine. We're very transparent. We can talk publicly about it, but because we are a nonprofit, we're limited in the amount of revenue we can generate from those kinds of sources. So the majority of your revenue has to come through donations when you're a nonprofit. And I know you say it's hard to get people to donate, but that's literally our business. If we have to convince people to donate, because if we don't, then we don't have a nonprofit anymore. We'll lose our tax exempt status. People won't get an exemption for donating to us. There's a lot of consequences to that. And I know people hate being under that wing of the IRS, but the same people who say that they hate that are happy to take a tax deduction because you want it because ultimately you end up paying, and I don't blame them because ultimately then you pay less to the IRS, right? So by taking that deduction, would you rather give it to the IRS or give it to an organization like We the Patriots USA? You're going to have to give it either way. And yes, we can debate as to whether that's constitutional if you'd have to pay that much in taxes. But at the end of the day, the law is the law as it is right now. Either you're going to pay it to the government or you can pay it to charities that you support. And so that's what the tax deduction allows you to do. So that's why year-end giving is huge for us and for most nonprofits. That's where we make most of our money is the last month or two of the year. This past year and the year before, unfortunately, things have been very much down because of the economy, because of this, what I call an orchestrated economic collapse. I don't believe any of this happened organically. I believe it was planned, as most things are that we see. And it's just been absolutely destructive and devastating to our organization. We're still here. We're still alive and kicking. We're still pressing on, and we have big plans for 2025. But we do need people to support us, out of the kindness of their hearts. Even if it's somewhat motivated by getting a tax deduction, that's great. We don't care. We just need money so we can help more people, because that's what the money ultimately goes to. I don't take, yes, this is my full-time job for now, but I don't take a greater salary. If someone gave me a $1 million donation tomorrow, I wouldn't see a penny of it personally. That's all. What I take from the organization is fixed by the board. I have a fixed amount, and that's all it can. And then maybe at some point, if things greatly increased and it grew, there could be an increase allowed. But it wouldn't happen overnight. It wouldn't happen for a while, and I wouldn't see any direct benefit. Ultimately, what that would be sunk into, I'll tell you right now, if I get $1 million tomorrow, it would be sunk into hiring attorneys that work directly for us, because we contract most of our legal work out, hiring attorneys that our own legal staff that work directly for us so that I could do a lot more lawsuits. Because when you contract out, you spend a lot more money on lawsuits than if you were to do it in-house. So if we had the in-house staff, if I could pay the attorneys, if I had the money to pay attorneys right now, I could probably do at least 3 times the number of lawsuits that we do right now, which would be amazing. Because even with our limited budget, we've already done dozens of lawsuits, right? All over the country. And we've been in California and Michigan and Minnesota and New Mexico and Florida and Connecticut and Massachusetts and Ohio. I mean, the Missouri, the list goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on of the different kinds of lawsuits and the different states we've been in filing federal and state lawsuits. But that's without even having an in-house legal staff. If I had an in-house legal staff, it would at least triple, if not quadruple, the number of lawsuits we're filing per year, and we'd win a lot more victories that way, because it's a numbers game ultimately. It really is. The more lawsuits you file, the chances of obtaining significant victories and precedents, significantly increases. So it's very, very, very important that we get that funding so that we can have our own staff. You can go to wethepatriotsusa.org, and Ricky will post the link. He is always good about that. wethepatriotsusa.org to donate, to support our work. You can also check out all of our legal updates there. We're very good about keeping our followers and our donors informed. As soon as a decision comes out, as soon as a lawsuit is filed, even if it's an unfavorable ruling and we have to appeal, we tell you almost immediately when we get that. We put a press release out, we put something on our website, we put something on our email blast, social media, telling people what the decision was. We link to the decision. We always link. When we file a lawsuit, we link to the filing. Not every organization does that, if you notice. We give you a direct link to the court pleadings, so you can see the stamp even from the court. You see that it was filed and what it said and what our arguments were. We're very transparent about that so that your money is going to actually fund real lawsuits that are being filed. I've always thought that was important. Apparently, other organizations that are larger, that already have the name recognition, they don't feel the need to do that anymore. They don't put links. They just say, hey, we did this great thing, give us $1 million, and they get it. We're not that lucky. We don't just get people to throw money at it. We show people, but I'm going to do it regardless, even if we have $100 million like some of these organizations do. I'm still going to be committed to that. I've always said that's so important, that transparency, and so that people feel that they have an active role in it. They can actually review the legal pleadings themselves. Some of these large organizations feel like they're not lawyers. We don't need to show them that. We don't need to give them all the details. They don't need to see that. Just trust us. We're doing a great job. You see that we've won a victory. That's enough reason to give us money. And maybe it is. But I feel like the people that are giving their hard-earned money should be able to see with their own eyes the complaints we're filing, the motions we're filing. They should be able to read it, to see the quality of the work, and to see what the rulings are from the court as well. Because that you have to pay for some of that. Some of those materials are on something called all the federal filings and the pleadings and the decisions are on something called PACER. Go to pacer.gov. You have to create an account. You can't just look it up and Google it and get it. You have to create an account, and then they charge you. And the first so many pages are free, but after a certain point, they charge you per page, like 10 cents a page, to download them. So when we're providing a link, we're giving you something, which is a public document. We're not doing anything wrong. We're allowed to share it, but something that you individually wouldn't necessarily have access to. And that's another benefit when you become a follower and subscriber, even if you can't donate right now. Please follow us on X, because that's the only way that you'll see us, because we're shadow banned. If you're not a follower, you'll never see anything we post. Even if you are, you'll probably have to check every now and then and look at our page, because you won't see our updates. Even if you turn notifications on, you won't see them. But follow us anyway, so we can grow the following. At WT Patriots USA is our handle on Twitter. On Facebook, it's just We the Patriots USA. Telegram, t.me/We the Patriots USA. We do have a Rumble channel, again, We the Patriots USA. But subscribe to our email list so you get those updates, and we have text alerts too. I don't send a lot of them. We have to pay for those, okay? We only have a certain number per month we can send, and then when we exhaust that, it costs us a lot of money. So we don't send a lot of text alerts. During year-end giving, we were sending more because it was, that's our last chance to get year-end gifts. But now you'll be lucky. I don't even know if you'll get 2 a month from us, from text alerts. But if there's a major decision that comes out from the court or something, or if we file a big lawsuit, you will get a text alert about that. And that most people appreciate that, because we're not spamming you. Same with emails. Some weeks we might send 5 emails, so an email a day during a Monday through Friday. But other weeks we might only send like 1 email all week. So this isn't something that's going to be constantly flooding your inbox. Like, I can't tell you already this morning, just since we've been on the call, okay, I already probably have 50 or 60 emails in here that are coming through on all these different accounts. And by the end of the day, it'll be hundreds. Okay, and I had deleted a bunch before we got on, because I try to keep up with that. Some people don't care. You should see Dawn. She's got like something like 80 or 90,000 messages over the years, because she just doesn't delete them. She just leaves them in our inbox. But we get spammed like crazy, and even when I unsubscribe, I still get emails. It's crazy. We get spammed like crazy, but that's why we're committed. We don't do that. So if you go to our homepage at wethepatriotsusa.org, at the top, it says contact. When you hit that contact tab, it'll say subscribe, and that's where you can hit to subscribe to our email list. But you get a free Patriot membership for doing that. And we also have paid memberships if anyone wants to do that, with additional benefits, free gift, access to our Constitution course. We run a weekly Constitution course. That's pretty much the only kind of, if you want to call it, a podcast that we do now, but it does come with a membership. David Oldham from Constitutional Grounds, he does that podcast for us. You'll see right there, featured on our homepage, is Mirella Ramirez. She's the kindergarten teacher from Oakland, California, that refused to use preferred pronouns for her 5-year-old student, 5-year-old girl who was transitioning to a boy, and she refused to do that. And so we filed a First Amendment free speech lawsuit. She's also got religious discrimination claims in there, because she objected to it on the basis of her religion. We filed that in federal court in conjunction with Harmeet Dillon's firm. She's our local counsel there. Harmeet's also been named to a cabinet post, appointed to a cabinet post in the Trump administration. But she's working with us on that lawsuit. So we have a lot of exciting things going on here. You'll see our legal updates. We just had a victory in Taryn Gregson's PGA Tour lawsuit. There's a lot of stuff still going on. And you can read about it on We the Patriots. I'm not going to talk about it all here because we don't have time, but you can read about it on our website. And that's why we like to call We the Patriots USA your one-stop shop for charitable giving, because your dollar goes further than pretty much anywhere else. When you look at, and that's not to knock any organizations. I support as many as you can. I don't tell people not to donate to other organizations. All right. But what I will say is that when you donate to us, you're not just donating for medical freedom or religious freedom or free speech or Second Amendment, right? You're donating, your dollar is going to all of those things. So if you support all of those things, your dollar is going to all of them. The problem becomes we do have some people that don't support all of those things, but that's not really a problem either because you are allowed to earmark your donation. All right, you have a right under the law, and the law requires us to respect this, and we do. Okay, that if you say I only want this going to this specific lawsuit, don't use it for anything else. We honor that. We put that all the litigation. Number one, all of the litigation donations go into a separate litigation account, and we have separate bank accounts. Okay, and we have one just for litigation that can't be used for anything, not even for salaries. Can't be used for operational expenses. Can't be used for anything. So first of all, if you donate to a lawsuit, that money goes into that litigation account. And then if you earmark it, for instance, for Marilla Ramirez, who's that teacher fighting because she lost her job for not using preferred pronouns, that money has to be used for her legal expenses, and it does get earmarked. And you have the right to say, I want it just used for this. Because the problem is, Ricky, it's great that we take on so many issues, but the one drawback is I like to say we're the only organization whose donors don't necessarily get along. They don't like each other because there's people, we even do like pro-life stuff. I mean, there's people in health freedom that aren't necessarily with us on pro-life or aren't with us on 2A. They don't support our stance on Second Amendment rights. So they may support us in health freedom, but not on Second Amendment. And so we have donors that don't necessarily like each other. That's rare. Usually, like you go to Planned Parenthood, everyone who donates to Planned Parenthood loves each other, right? They're all on the same page. Or you go to one of the more conservative, organizations that you can think of, Heritage Fund or, Alliance Defending Freedom or something. Pretty much everyone who donates there supports the same things. But since we have such a wide umbrella, we actually have people that don't like each other supporting us. But that's fine. We love that because that shows that's truly, I mean, we're not going to, when we stand here and say we're completely, just for constitutional rights, we're nonpartisan, we're apolitical, we can say that with a straight face because we have people from all different walks of life supporting us.
Yeah, so I know that when you have a nonprofit organization, you do have some restrictions and on what you can or cannot do, but and most of it does have to come donation wise. But like, how does a YMCA or a Boys and Girls Club, is that like those are nonprofit, and are they getting most of the revenue from donations?
I can't speak specifically to YMCA, but I do know a lot of organizations like that get a ton of money in federal grants. You're allowed to do that too. I'm allowed to do that. But do you think the federal government is going to give us any money, considering they're often the ones that we're suing? They're not going to be supporting us that way. So no, unfortunately, we have never received a grant from the federal government. We've received very few grants from private organizations because the only ones we ever have received actually from private organizations have been unsolicited grants we didn't apply for. Grants that we've applied for, no one's ever given us one, probably because we're too controversial. Most of these foundations have to color within the lines, and they don't want to give to an organization like We the Patriots USA. If you happen to sit on a foundation, on the board of a foundation, anyone listening, or if you know someone that does, please talk to them about We the Patriots USA. Ask them to invite us to apply for a grant. We do have, Dawn heads up our grant writing right now. I'll connect you with her, and she can get started on that application. There is a process. It usually takes several months. Sometimes you don't hear back, usually for 3 to 6 months. So it's a long process. But grants, I mean, there are a lot of organizations. I met with one guy who runs a similar type of pro bono law firm, constitutional rights law firm down in Texas when I was at a convention once. And he told me grants should be about 10% of your revenue as a nonprofit. Which can be huge. I mean, some of the organizations I mentioned, some of these nonprofits literally have budgets of $100 million. Last time I checked, the ACLU, which, listen, once in a while they throw us a bone, but for the most part, we don't agree with most of the work they do. Their litigation budget alone is $100 million, not the whole organization budget, just to do lawsuits. So that litigation account that I was talking about that we have, that doesn't even have $1 million in it, never mind $100 million. They have 100 million just in that account. So people on the other side of these issues, the anti-freedom side, I'll say, they fund organizations like the ACLU and Planned Parenthood like crazy, and so does the federal government. Your tax dollars, ladies and gentlemen, go to fund that. President Trump supposedly is going to stop all of that, but we'll see. But that's what really, really irks me is that there's so much money thrown at the other side, and yet people like us that are doing this hard work on the front lines can't even scrounge together $1 million in funding. That's I don't know. It's a travesty. I mean, in my opinion, because it's absolutely ridiculous that people aren't willing to fund these battles. When you're looking at it, the courts are really the last battleground, and I talk about that to an extent in the complacency problem as well. That article that I mentioned, the courts. You can say right now, a lot of people think, oh, good, Trump got elected. Oh, good, the Republicans have control of the House and the Senate. But guess what? The federal judiciary is still an open battleground. So the last battleground state, I think, is the judiciary. Yes, you can say there's a conservative majority on the Supreme Court sometimes. Sometimes they rule the way that most people in conservative circles would like, and sometimes they don't. But they're not the only court. Most cases never make it to the Supreme Court. Do you realize that only 1% of the cases, the petitions that are filed to the Supreme Court, are actually taken up? Out of the 8,000 that are filed every year, they only take up about 80. 80 cases out of 8,000 petitions. That's 1%. So 99% of cases are not heard by the Supreme Court. So you can say, oh, great, there's a conservative majority for those who are conservative. Many in the pro-freedom movement are, I'll call it that. But your case probably will never get there. So you need to get good precedent and good decisions out of the lower courts in the federal judiciary. Well, you don't have, there's like I said, that's a battleground. You're going to have to fight those battles, and you're going to need organizations like We the Patriots USA fighting those battles. So again, tie it all back together, Ricky, we can't be complacent. Just because things are looking positive for the new year, I don't want to be pessimistic. Hopefully great things happen. I'm confident there are going to be a lot of great things that happen, but that doesn't mean we have to take our foot off the pedal and just sit back and just think the federal government's going to save us and we don't have to fight any battles in our communities or in our states. I know people are exhausted. People, especially in health freedom, that have been battling for decades in some cases, they're exhausted. They want this to be our moment where the battle's won, the war is won, and finally we're going to be taken care of. But if you know anything, if you've been battling in the health freedom movement or in any movement for that many years, you know that you can never trust the federal government to protect you, no matter who's in charge, that you're going to have to fight for your own rights and or have organizations like ours step alongside you to fight those battles in court. And we're happy to do it. As long as we have funding to do it, Ricky, we will keep fighting these battles. And if you know anyone that needs help, even though I said that we don't have a lot of funding to take on new cases, still send them my way. Maybe I can provide them with some guidance. A lot of what we do is not lawsuits. A lot of what we do is providing guidance behind the scenes. And sometimes we're able to resolve something without a lawsuit. Sometimes we're able to guide someone, provide them with some guidance. I'm only licensed in 2 states and some federal courts, but I know a lot of attorneys in other states. So if you call me from Florida, I'm not licensed in Florida. I can't really give you legal advice or represent you, but I know Florida attorneys. I know some really good ones, actually, that can help you. And so we sometimes act as a lawyer referral service, too, where people call us. And I mean, that's not officially what we are, but we do refer people to attorneys all the time. And that's valuable in and of itself, because otherwise you're just Googling some attorney and hoping that he or she is good, and you have no idea, but having attorneys who've actually worked with these people give you a recommendation, that's huge. And sometimes, people call me from states that I am licensed in, and I do give them advice. And I'm able to give them advice and guidance. And that's huge too, because having an attorney give you, legal guidance or legal advice, usually you have to pay for them. Usually you don't get an hour on the phone with an attorney just for free. Well, you do when you call me, because I don't charge anything. But again, I'm being paid to do that by the We the Patriots USA donors. So if you want me to be able to continue to do that for you, we need to have the funding. And anyway, that's that. So um,
I still think a weekly podcast, and even if the revenue, because as the show takes off, the revenue is not going to be a whole lot anyway. So I don't think you're going to exceed whatever the limit is that you can get from
yeah,
the podcast. But what I think it will do, if you did a weekly podcast and you shared your story, because I know in the past, you've always been awesome with like, hey, I have this client that I'm working with. They have this amazing story. Would you be willing to have them on? And throughout the years, I've had on tons of amazing people who've had amazing stories that you helped out. And by the way, listeners, I have personally sent people to Brian, and he's helped out everybody that I've sent to him. He's got, I'll be like, hey, this person has this issue. I think my buddy, Brian Festa can help out. Contact him, and they'll contact. And every person said Brian's got back to him. He is absolutely willing to help. I mean, he obviously is a very busy man, as he's probably deleting emails while we speak. But he always finds time to help people out if he can. And so he's not just trying to, sell you this. Like personally, I know for a fact he tries to help out everybody that he can. And obviously he's stretched thin because of the funding and whatnot. But I think back to my point about like sharing some of these stories, I think if people heard on a weekly basis some of the things you guys are doing, and they can kind of connect the dots on like, where is my money going? Like, oh, I've heard this personal story. These are the types of people that We the Patriots are helping, and these are type of people that my money's helping if I donate. Like, I think having that personal connection to the organization and hearing some of the lives that you guys are changing and helping would go a long way. And also, I think
can I ask you a question?
yeah, go ahead.
Do you think there's a big downside that if we were to do it audio only, that would hurt us? Because it is hard always to get into a place. We work remotely. Sometimes we're working even on the run, right? On the go. It's hard for us to commit to be in a space. We don't have professional studios like you do. Sometimes, we could even be kids home or whatever. Is there a big downside to doing it audio only? I know video content is easier to share on social media and that gets more clicks. But as far as listeners to podcasts, do they really care about video?
99% of my listeners download the episodes. They don't watch. Like I don't do, since I got kicked off YouTube, I was picking up some steam, and I think if I was still on YouTube now, I'd be doing quite well. But since I got kicked off YouTube, I do post on all the video platforms. But every once in a while you get a video that goes viral. I had Dr. Jack Cruz on recently. That did pretty well on certain platforms. And it's funny, like certain shows will do well. I'll have a show that does well in Band.video, doesn't do so well in Rumble. Then I'll have a show that does well in Rumble, doesn't do as well on BitChute. But it's like a small percentage. But what I would say, if you don't do audio or don't do video, maybe do what like the higher side chats do in some of the other audio only shows, and post the audio with just a thumbnail on Rumble, because or on some of these platforms, because even if you're just posting it as an audio podcast, any location where somebody can accidentally run into it, the better, right? So it's like, they might run into it on Rumble and then subscribe to it on iTunes or Spotify, So even if you did audio only, it wouldn't hurt to also post on those platforms just with the thumbnail, upload the audio with just the thumbnail, and I think that'd be fine. Because if the platform's out there, why not utilize it? And if you can use it,
What
you know,
Yeah, I mean, what do you say to the naysayers like Matt Walsh, who recently posted, and I don't agree with everything Matt says, but he posted something on Facebook a couple weeks ago that say, listen, there's too many podcasts out there. Not everybody needs a podcast. Not everybody has something valuable to say. He thinks there's just podcast overload because everyone has a podcast now. So what would you say to that? Because to me, that has been some of the hesitation about bringing back the podcast too, is that it's just going to get lost in the sea of podcasts. It's very unlikely it's going to take off and the people are going to see it. We had a professional journalist doing it, professional sports, trained CBS Sports and PGA Tour reporter doing a show for us, and we couldn't even get people to watch or listen to it. What makes you think that Don and I doing a podcast is going to pick up steam and suddenly, or not suddenly, but even eventually we'll have thousands of listeners or millions or whatever. I mean,
Well, I think your guys' passion and you've been doing it for with very little donation and financial help for a while. You guys have invested a lot of your own personal time and energy into this. So you obviously feel very you have strong emotions towards these issues and trying to be a positive organization that brings some light to these issues and try to actually make some change and do something fulfilling. I think that's what people appeal. What appeals to people. I think you look at Rogan, for example, right? Rogan and Patrick Bet David, they couldn't be more different. Rogan's the biggest show in the world, and Patrick Bet David's doing very well now. But he sees it as like everything seems like a business. He's looking at a business. Rogan's just like, I sit down with people that I find interesting, and people that we talk about conversations that are thought provoking and appeal to me, and then hopefully people like it, and people like it because we're attracted to passion and organic conversation. And I think like sometimes somebody who is, I mean, CNN, Fox News, they all have podcasts and they have professionals, right? People who are much better speakers than I am. People, sometimes I used to do this. I don't do it anymore. But every once in a while, I'd go look at the charts and I would see all the like professionally done podcasts that were higher up in the charts than I am. And I'm like, oh, I'm doing better than these guys. And they have how much money invested, and I'm doing it in a basement, with no professional background in any of this. But I think people, the fact that you're dealing with real people, real stories, you guys are motivated by, real, honest, sincere reasons. I think that will appeal to people, and also getting a connection to the type of people that you're helping. Like, hey, here's a story, like you said, of this teacher. Here's her story. These are the type of people that we can help, right? And then you put out a little podcast. You share the story in the beginning, of every podcast. Like, hey, these are the type of people that we're helping. And even if you don't have a guest on, maybe just share the type of lawsuits that and then what you're doing is you're putting out a podcast, and hopefully you make some revenue on that, but you're also people are getting a reminder of like, oh, these are the type of people that they're helping. My donation are going to help real life situations and real life issues and real life struggles that people are dealing with. So I think it would spark some of that, and really, you have a great legal perspective on things, right? So it's like you said, most people, if they want to talk to an attorney and get some insight, like it costs you money, right? So to be able to like I love it, like to have you on here and then you kind of talk about current events, historical events, future events, whatever, but from your legal perspective. To me, that's value. That's value for myself, value for the listener, because not everybody can get a legal perspective for free, and kind of be able to pick at your brain. And you're willing to talk about anything and everything that's controversial. Most attorneys wouldn't be able to even touch these topics. So to get a legal perspective on these controversial topics, like to me, I think there's some value there too. People might listen just because it's like, hey, I get to listen to a attorney's take on what's going on, So I think there's a niche there, because I don't know, I haven't looked for it, but I don't know if there's a whole lot of attorneys that will openly talk about the topics that you're willing to talk about. And also, Charlie Robinson came to me with the same issue. When he first thought about starting a podcast, he's like the world needs another podcast. I'm like, Charlie, like the more people like us who are seeking truth, having honest conversations, fighting for these issues, and trying to get these conversations out there, the better. Because I'm like, maybe a listener might not run into me, maybe they run into you, maybe a listener might not run into your podcast, maybe run into Brian's podcast. So it's like, you never know, like, who's going to be the spark, to motivate the next person who's a protester, podcaster, who's on our team and doing some great work. I really do believe in the ripple effect. Listen, I had the same feelings when I first started my podcast. I had friends of mine. They're like, "How are you going to get guests?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'll figure it out." And they're like, "How are you going to do this? How are you going to?" I'm like, "I don't know. I really don't know." They're like, "Who's going to listen? Why are they going to listen? There's already podcasts out there." When I started in 2013, I thought I was late to the party. So it's like, you always feel like you're late to
yeah.
But consistency is important, because the average podcast does 7 episodes. I've been much like yourself. I'll go on every podcast that people invite me on, And a lot of those podcasts don't even exist anymore. Some of them have, so it's like consistently is really, really important too. Like just never stop putting out shows, put them out and and also do a lot of interviews, which you're great at too. And you never know when you're gonna, all of a sudden gather some steam and then, expand. So
Yeah, no, it's great advice, and I'm literally going to reach out to Don and talk about this as soon as we're off. I do have to run though, actually. I have a little bit of work being done here at my house. You may have seen people just came in, so I have to run and stop the interview. But thank you so much once again for having me on, Ricky. It was a great conversation as always, and I'd be happy to come back anytime. And certainly I'll keep you in the loop if we have any legal updates, which I'm sure we will very soon.
awesome, awesome. I'll put links in the show description. I'll send you links to the show once it's up and live. And as always, thanks, Brian, for your time. I really appreciate it and all the hard work you do. Take care, and we'll keep in touch.
All right. Thank you. Happy New Year.
Hey, happy New Year. Thanks, Brian.